Hello, my loves. Welcome to Soul Love. Welcome to this channel and welcome back if you've been here before, of course. I'm Mafalda, and in this space, I dive deep into the twin flame phenomenon without shying away from the real truths of this journey. And this video will be very on topic because I will be addressing the severe hijacking that has taken place within twin flame communities of the twin flame label and journey itself by the false light, by the counter forces, and I will also be touching upon how that keeps us stuck in loops, which is not what we want. It keeps us in lower levels of consciousness and cycles of pain. So the twin flame journey is real, but there has been so much distortion around it that it has been it has become, better said, so detrimental to a lot of us on the journey, particularly the twin that seeks out content, that seeks out information, that operates in the spiritual realm, usually the divine feminine, but there are some awakening divine masculines that are playing this role as well within their twin bonds, especially for us, because whenever we are stuck in cycles of doubt, doubting the connection, doubting whether this is real, doubting whether or not we are going crazy, of course, that keeps us stuck in the lower levels of consciousness. And that is in the interest of the forces that are trying to keep us from locking in those higher stations of identity, that unity consciousness, that wholeness that will allow us to fully exit the matrix on earth once we pass on, and that is also what allows physical union, reunion, stable in the physical to occur. And so on the one hand, we've had waves of people and waves of information out there that have completely discredited the journey, made it look like a fantasy utopia, and that has shamed people who, quote unquote, believe they're on the journey, that have labeled those who awaken to this journey as clingy, needy, obsessive individuals who simply cannot let go of a partner that has rejected them, which completely oversimplifies and vulgarizes what this journey is. Then within the twin flame community, we've had waves of coaches and teachers that perpetuate this forever waiting, this forever working on ourselves, because the point isn't union at all. And the point is to come into our own embodiment. But what they're doing really is shaming us out of the very real knowing that we are meant to reunite with our counterpart, whether or not that's in the cards for us in any given or any particular lifetime. And so you can see I've outlined here two streams of information that have been released into public awareness, where on both sides there's a distorted lens through which to look at the journey, because neither are twins merely obsessive, compulsive beings who simply cannot alchemize rejection and move on with their lives, nor are twins meant to believe that union is not possible. What we're meant to do is to spiritually awaken, to spiritually grow, and most importantly, to remember who we are. So, as twins, we are, of course, meant to be together. It's just that we're not meant to be together in the 3D version of what relationships look like. And so we go through a process of alchemy and purification so that we can anchor 5D level relationship and partnership, which is a level of love and unconditional love that has not been commonplace on this planet so far. And so that journey toward that itself, and it's a journey within, of course, is extremely challenging and extremely painful because it requires us to face all that's in the way of that. And no stone can be left unturned because we have a very clear mirror incarnated in another body that truly shows us where we're at and where the connection is at. And there's no escaping that. There's no bypassing that once you're activated on the journey. Whereas with other types of spiritual awakening, you can, in fact, perform a version of yourself to the outside that looks abundant and that looks like they're at a higher level of consciousness, even if that's not the reality. In this type of connection and bond and awakening, that's not possible. There is no bypassing possible. And so the hijacking that's taken place is, on the one hand, is or has been used as a way to keep us in cycles of focusing on the runner-chaser dynamics or focusing too much on whether or not the physical twin is in our lives, or they've also, in a way, they've encouraged a level of shame in us to even acknowledge that part of our purpose is to anchor these connections in the physical. And that's just extremely detrimental, like I was saying, because it keeps us from admitting and acknowledging the very real anger, frustration, from actually doing the work of self-respect, of setting boundaries. And so there's a lot of spiritual bypassing that happens within these communities that shame us for even wanting to reach out or for even focusing on anything outside of ourselves. And it's just not helpful. So I want to offer a perspective in this video whereby we acknowledge paradox, because so much of spiritual awakening is reconciling paradox, is accepting nuance. It's knowing that, yes, physical union is not only possible, but it is part of the mission, while at the same time understanding that our perception of what physical union is very limited. And so we need to go through a process of learning to surrender to this journey, learning to detach from any expectation of anything manifesting in form on the outside, not because that's not part of it, but because that in itself is what brings us into a level of neutrality and a vibrational frequency that's embodied in sovereignty and empowerment, where we're not looking outside to anything that will fulfill us or that will fill a void within. But we are whole, sovereign, empowered in and of ourselves. And yes, this is possible. Absolutely, it's possible to hold both. In fact, that is union frequency. That is what union is. And this process will look differently for everybody because all of us have very unique journeys and we're not all at the same level of consciousness and we don't all have the same soul history. We haven't all been through the same lives and the same trauma as each other and even between counterparts, because especially as monadic twins, we've split in the higher dimensions. So like I've mentioned in previous video, we've lived as different souls. We are the other half of, we are originally one soul, but we've lived as two separate identities, or I wouldn't call it an identity, but as two separate counterparts. That's the best way to put it. Across many dimensions, across many star systems, across many worlds. So we don't even have the exact same trauma necessarily as our counterpart. Yes, we are perfect mirrors for each other because we share the same core soul frequency, but it'll look different because we've played different roles. We've also come to Earth to accomplish different missions, and we came in at different times and for different reasons. And so this journey kicks off as, how do I make this pain go away? How do I end this suffering? And why do I feel this way? And am I going crazy? And is this even possible? And is this even happening? To, wow, I'm awakening to the truth of who I really am. I'm awakening to the truth of what I really came here to do. And you do eventually learn to surrender to this journey and to accept the blessings of the journey, no matter how brutal it is at times. And it is. There's no denying that. We cannot sugarcoat that because the level of distortion on this planet is no joke. And it's real. And yes, twins have been kept separated and apart for lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes. Why? Because, and not from a romantic love story perspective, although this is the most loving story ever, because uniting means that we've reached a level of consciousness whereby we are unaffected by the distortion because we alchemize it, and we are assisting the earth and humanity itself in liberating itself from the shackles of slavery, from the shackles of mind control that has been taking place by the counterforce, that has been taking place on this planet and that has been enforced by the counterforces. So I hope to have given you a little bit of a wider perspective on the journey, on what it means. I hope that I've helped you identify a few of the false narratives that have been put forth within twin flame communities, within spiritual communities, for the wider collective as well, about twin flames, that honestly have hindered so many people and are one of the reasons why I feel called to show up specifically in this arena, is to help dismantle these false narratives, to help demystify this journey so that we don't waste time looping in circles, not understanding what's happening to us, and realizing how, yes, we're on a journey. There is a point to all this. This doesn't have to be endless suffering. And at the same time, yes, you're meant to be with your counterpart. And at the same time, yes, you're meant to let go of the expectation of that ever happening. And no, that's not impossible. That's what happens once you're able to develop spiritual sovereignty and spiritual discernment. So thank you for watching. Do reach out if you are in need of assistance on your journey. I offer healing, guidance, coaching. I also have some recorded quantum healing transmissions that you can download if you want that type of assistance, but you want to do this on your own. I cannot recommend enough that you seek out guidance from anyone that you feel is trustworthy, because it can really help catapult you on your journey. I also want to remind you that I have the link to my other YouTube channel. It's called Purity and Power, and on there I discuss spiritual awakening, healing, higher wisdom topics for the general public and the general collective, and I talk a little bit more about what's happening on the planet in general, more so directed at spiritual workers and light workers. So do check that out if you're interested in that. And I wanted to say thank you for being here. Do let me know in the comments if you're in resonance with this transmission, and if you do have any suggestions for topics that I might address in upcoming videos, I also welcome that. I do appreciate all that you guys leave me in the comments. I appreciate your presence here. I do want to leave this side note, I would say, which is I very much welcome your comments, but I cannot offer personalized guidance and coaching in the comment section, simply because that distorts the field and it compromises the integrity of my teachings and of my work. So when I do welcome your questions, I more so mean questions that might serve others and that I might use as inspiration for future videos, as opposed to being able to provide one-to-one coaching in the comments section. It is not in integrity for myself or even for you. So do protect your energy field in that way, and don't expose yourself in the comment section. And by that, I don't mean that you shouldn't talk about your personal journey, but what I mean is don't open up your field to receive guidance or specific guidance in that way, just because you become more susceptible to interference. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Like I said, I wish you all the best on your journey, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Thank you.